Chapter 7. Tribes, Gangs, and Terrorists. Every honorable convention has its shadow version, a pseudo or evil twin manifestation in which noble principles are practiced, but in a, quote, dark side system that turns means and ends on their heads. The mafia and criminal gangs live by rigorous and sophisticated codes of loyalty, discipline, and honor. So do terrorist organizations. Does that make them warriors? Do these groups practice the warrior ethos? When is honor not honor? To answer this, we must consider the nature of tribes. What are the social, cultural, and political characteristics of tribes? First, tribes are hostile to all outsiders. This has been true, anthropologists tell us, of virtually all tribes in all parts of the globe and in all areas of history. Tribes are perpetually at war with other tribes. Tribes practice the primacy of honor. Tribes are governed not by the rule of law, but by a code of honor, which means Nang and Pashto. Tribal codes mandate the obligation of revenge, badal. Any insult to honor must be avenged. Tribes prize loyalty and cohesion. Tribes revere elders and the gods. Tribes resist change. Tribes suppress women. Tribes value the capacity to endure hardship. Those are not my words, by the way. This is from the book, so don't hold me back on that. Tribes are patient. Time means nothing in the tribal scheme. Tribes will wait out an invading enemy till he tires and goes home. You've got the watches, says the Taliban, but we've got the time. Tribes are tied to the land and draw strength from the land. Tribes fight at their best in defense of home soil. Tribes are adaptable. They will take on any shape or coloration temporarily if it will help them survive in the long run. Tribes will ally with enemy tribes to repel the greater threat of an invader, then go back to killing one another once the invader has been driven out. There is much to admire in these qualities. In fact, a strong case could be made that what the U.S. military attempts to do in training its young men and women is to turn them into a tribe. Basic training. Certainly it's not hard to understand why tribes all over the world make such formidable fighting forces. But the tribal mindset possesses two potentially dangerous attributes which can make its practitioners prey to what we might call shadow tribalism or criminal tribalism, particularly in the modern post and anti-tribal world. First, tribes exist for themselves alone. An outsider, unless he falls under the obligation of hospitality, is not considered a human being in the same sense that a tribal member is, and is not protected by the same notions of fellow humanity. Tribes are the original us versus them social entity. When this aspect of honor culture is grafted onto a criminal, political, or extremist religious doctrine, read Mafia, Aryan Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda, the easy next step is dehumanization and demonization of the enemy. The warrior ethos, on the contrary, mandates respect for the enemy. The foe is granted full honor as a fighting man and defender from his home, soil, and values. From Cyrus through Alexander to the Greeks and Romans and on down to Rommel and the Africa Corps, which some notorious lapse be it said. Today's enemy was considered tomorrow's potential friend and thus granted his full humanity. Second, tribes are by definition limited in size, since social bonds are usually of blood or kinship, and thus feel vulnerable at times to bigger or stronger rivals. Tribes live by the siege mentality. They see themselves as surrounded, outnumbered, and ever in peril. Again, read mob, prison gang, Al-Qaeda. The tribal mindset thus has no trouble embracing the concept of asymmetrical warfare and pushing this to its limits, meaning terrorism and beyond. If the enemy is bigger, stronger, and more technologically advanced than we are, says the mob, gang, or terrorist, then we are justified in using any and all methods to strike at him. Criminal and terrorist organizations practice tribe-like codes of honor, but they do not practice the warrior ethos. They are, quote, shadow tribes. They are not warriors. In the practice of terror, in fact, the terrorist organization uses the enemy's embrace of the warrior ethos against him. How? By violating the honorable tribal warrior code in the most shocking and extreme manner, i.e., striking civilian targets, using women and children as human shields, etc. The terrorists' aim is to outrage and appall the sense of honor of the enemy that the enemy concludes. These people are fiends and madmen, and decides either to yield to the terrorist demands out of fear or to fight the terrorist by sinking to his moral level. What would Leonidas think of waterboarding or extraordinary rendition? How would Cyrus the Great look upon the practice of suicide bombing or video beheadings on YouTube?